Tonight on Good News, Bad News, we're going to tell you about FreedomFest. We had a great panel, we met a lot of people, and we had a lot of fun.
Welcome to Good News, Bad News, the Libertarian Christian Roundtable, where every other week we challenge the status quo and give you the Libertarian Christian analysis of what's happening in your world.
Welcome to Good News, Bad News, the Libertarian Christian Roundtable, brought to you by the Libertarian Christian Institute. I'm Dr. Norman Horn. With me today, I got Carrie Baldwin, I got Aaron Cuevas, and I have Matthew Bellis. Guys, we are here today to tell you a little bit about what we did last week, where we were at the legendary FreedomFest, which is an annual event held by, well, I guess the Freedom Fest Inc. or whatnot, but it's kind of the trade show for liberty. So we were there as the Libertarian Christian Institute. We had a table, we had a panel discussion, we met a ton of people, we gave away some books, and we had a lot of fun while we were doing it. Guys, we're going to just kind of reflect upon all the things we did while we were at Freedom Fest. And so I guess who wants to kind of lead off here with kind of the summary of the, especially the panel discussion that we did? Carrie, you want to kind of lead us in with that?
Yeah, so the panel discussion was, I'd say, interesting, a little bit unexpected. I think we were planning on hearing a little bit more about, questions concerning jobs and abortion and what happens now. And we really didn't get that. I do think that we had our breakout session, I think, was much more successful than others just because of Matthew getting the audience involved. He had a great plan for that, executed it really well. We had engagement from the audience, lots of really great questions. And I'd say the questions were much more along the lines of, those basic questions of, how is a Christian a libertarian? How do you square that circle?
Well, and it's interesting too to kind of note that the concern and like the kind of overarching concern that people had, and I guess maybe we should back up for a second and kind of, well, what were the details of this breakout session that you did on some level? So let's just kind of back up and say what that was. So we titled it after our book, Faith Seeking Freedom, and it was making the case for a free society from a Christian point of view. And so we did this in a panel discussion format. We had myself, Carrie, Aaron, and Doug Stewart, the CEO of LCI, as the kind of discussants on the panelists. And then Matthew was our moderator. And so he kind of took he's having some microphone issues, so he will be miming most of his interactions here tonight. But that is not what he did when although it would have been funny if you had been a mime moderator. Maybe we'll try that next year.
I like that.
But he kind of did he called it the Donahue method. For those of you who are all older than us, will know what Donahue is. Otherwise, probably you'll be more like the rest of us and not know much about Donahue. No, but the idea just to really, bring the mic into the audience and kind of spur on discussion that way. So that
Norman, just one input. If you're a libertarian, you must have seen Milton Friedman on Donahue.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
That is somewhat required viewing. I guess that's true. And there's that's a legendary interview. That is true. But I think we did have a really interesting interactive effect. Very different than any of the panel discussions that I ended up in otherwise, which was pretty cool. Pretty cool. So it did seem interesting as well that the overarching interest was one of like how do we communicate these values to our Christian and even non-Christian compatriots, especially in the face of a rising, polarization of leftists and right-leaning people as well? Aaron, what did you kind of observe from your point of view throughout the panel discussion?
Oh wow, where do I start? I was very happy that I was able to summarize a lot of my ideas because I usually take long to express myself, as I'm doing right now. But I did hit points that I think some people profited from it, and that was that did bring me tons and tons of joy. That I did notice that it did resonate with people. One of the, I guess, the summary that I can do by reading lots and lots of Robert Nisbet was, and Hayek. That's kind of like that mixture is my political outlook, if you wish. It will be that Christians do have to worry about creating community at the local level, and that in itself protects you from the encroachment of the state. It protects people around you from the encroachment of the state, and it also provides the identity and the memories and the expectations about the future that people need to not fall prey of woke culture. Since I was able to do that kind of summary, it really did hit everything that I wanted. And I was very impressed that I was able to do it like in like very, very like summarized way, and there was no imprecision on it, which I was very glad that I was able to do so. So I really did enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's one of the themes of this Freedom Fest was cancel culture and wokeism, the rising tide of that, and it's interesting to kind of note that there's still, despite the fact that maybe it's evident to many of you listeners even right now, like what some of those prescient issues are, it's still difficult for a lot of people, and I think it's underappreciated. Some of the things that Aaron you brought out with respect to the way in which wokeism is kind of becoming the replacement religion for many. It was even noted by groups such as Atheists for Liberty, for instance, who happened to be present at Freedom Fest. That people identifying as Christian in America is like on a downward trend right now, and even Christian. I mean, this is well known if you've been reading any Christianity Today or read any newspaper or looked at Pew Research or whatever. It's just the way it is. So it's interesting that is indeed the case, and we tried to say that when you have that God-shaped hole, in rising amongst us, well, it's going to get replaced by something, and that something is going to be wokeism a lot of times.
Yeah, the way that I explained it, I thought it actually, and actually like my idea kind of like came even became a little more robust later on with later conversations that it is wokeism is the culture now because it is the default position. When you're trying to explain a phenomena, usually you have different types of hypotheses, and then if those don't work, then you go to a default one. The example I gave it was like whenever you have a crisis of identity, you can go through a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, in the 90s, 80s, or whatever, it was always at the end of the day when you were young. Well, if it's not your parents, if it's not your relationship with your boyfriend, girlfriend, then more than likely, what about the relation with God? Today is if you have a problem and you're not totally sure what it is, more than likely the default position now is your sexual identity.
Yeah.
And it's a default position already. People don't even have to think through whether it is or is not. It's just like, okay, I have no explanation. That is the default explanation to all the problems. And so that means that it crowded out the idea of God or Christian culture in the background.
So any other observations, Carrie, from your point of view, like kind of either dovetailing off that or things that you noticed that were interesting about our panel discussion in particular?
Yeah, I think that there were, my impression was after the fact, there were Christians in our audience, right? This was less people coming to see, non-Christians coming to see how we square the circle, and more Christians coming to see how we square the circle. And I saw a lot of excitement from audience members when they were able to interact with us and hear our explanations, because I do think that you do have a growing number of Christians who recognize that there is a problem with the state, there is a problem with culture. The moral majority has not been successful in their endeavor and has in many ways made it worse. And so they are looking for answers. And even one of the questions that we got was, what do we do? Like, what are the practical things that we can do in order to spread this message or help other Christians understand that they can be libertarians, that's that's not an incongruous idea. So I think, I think even generally we were well received. I think not just in our breakout session, but by other exhibitors that were there. It wasn't like, oh, there's the Christians over there. They think they can be libertarian. Let's not talk to them. We got we weren't mentioned by our group title, but we did get a nod on the Reason Roundtable, mentioned that there were Christian libertarians who were at the event along with the atheist libertarians or atheists for liberty. So, and, I even had a brief conversation with the advocates for decriminalizing sex work. I had an interesting conversation with them. I think they were a little bit intimidated when I came up and introduced myself as being from the Libertarian Christian Institute. They're like, "Ooh," but we had a good conversation, and they received me well. So, I would say, the theme of the event this year was turning the tide. I think that there's a turning of the tide with how Christians are perceived by libertarians. I think that that's due to a lot of the work that we've done in demonstrating that, we're not your typical faith-based political organization, right? We are genuine libertarians, we're genuine Christians, and we can genuinely, show that those two things are compatible.
Yep. So Matthew, do you want to have any closing thoughts there, either via your voice or via miming?
How's this? Can you guys hear me all right?
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Not bad. Okay. So hopefully the viewers at home will be okay with being this close to my face. But it's interesting, though, that you brought up the sex workers for decriminalization of sex work, and we saw, of course, people advocating for the decriminalization of marijuana, and also, the atheists for liberty. So all of the stereotypes for libertarians were there, and that's kind of the general thrust of whenever you're talking to somebody about libertarianism. They just think, oh, well, you're a bunch of pot smoking atheists who want to go out and buy prostitutes. And so we were at least able to provide a little bit of a juxtaposition, provide some more thought and more probably apropos cultural touch points on what we've been kind of discussing and talking about. Frankly, what was most fascinating, I don't know if you actually discussed this or not, but the questions that didn't come up in our breakout panel was discussions about abortion, which we thought would be the first thing to come up. And it just didn't happen. So, excuse me, I'm coming from a non-disclosed location in Washington, so there may be giant jets.
Yeah,
but anyhow,
we're on the lookout for drones behind you. Yeah. So.
Please, this is anti-libertarian country.
Yeah. No, nobody just walks into Mordor,
Truly, the air here is an acid that burns up.
Yeah, it's a poison.
Yeah, so here's the thing, though, when it comes to organizations like FreedomFest, they're trying to become more of a mainstream, wide-based, big tent group where they want to bring as many people in, which I think is fine, because there are many groups out there that are just fine with kind of dividing amongst themselves until they become smaller and smaller and smaller. So being able to have a voice there and being a spoke in the wheel of libertarianism, but understanding the whole of it belongs to Christ, is a wonderful position to be in. And I just really enjoyed it. Other than having to walk everywhere, and Vegas is so darn hot and so far apart from everything else, it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. So what were some of the other things that we saw there? Can we go, we've mentioned some of the other exhibitors. And so let's talk about exhibitors for a second. I do want to bring a special note about the Independent Institute, who was there. I don't know if you guys noted this, but so the Independent Institute had a table. It was kind of small, kind of tucked away a little bit, but none other than our friend Mary Thoreau was there. and some of you will know if you've been with us for a while. We are
You mean Mary Ruwart?
no, Mary Thoreau, as in the
Oh,
wife of
that's
our
right,
dearly
David.
departed
Yeah.
David Thoreau, who passed away only just hardly a couple months ago at this point. And so it was great to see her. I got to go give her a hug and talk to her for a minute, and just give her give her a little love, because that needed to happen, and I was very glad to see her. So that was really cool. Who else did you guys see? You meet anybody particularly cool? I got to meet Nick Gillespie finally.
I did meet Alvins OBrien for a brief
Oh,
moment. Yep. So, but it was
you might need to provide the moment of context for that.
okay. So, yeah, Alvins OBrien is sort of the outspoken pro-choice libertarian who holds that abortion should be legal up to birth. She and I were featured on John Stossel a few weeks ago, and we did do Doug and I did a little commentary on that for the LCI podcast. But yeah, so Alvins and I basically met on John Stossel, and then we met in person here at FreedomFest. So yeah.
I got a chance to actually meet Eric Metaxas.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which was interesting. The author of Is Atheism Dead? And I got to ask him a question during his breakout session that he said made his eyes glaze over. So I feel
what did you ask him?
I will say, his book, Is Atheism Dead? Is a great review of what a lot of people know as the fine-tuning.
Okay.
That the universe and life itself holds such a special position within the universe that just the jiggery pokery of changing the dials in the physics completely destroys the chance of life on Earth. The universe is expanding too fast. We have a superheated universe. It expands too slowly. It cools down and collapses on itself. If all of the aspects of having Jupiter in its perfect position, then it absorbs a lot of the space material that draws in things from all the worlds and protects the Earth. All of these individual fine-tuning arguments that kind of shows that life on planet Earth doesn't happen within 10 to the 90th power. That's 10 times the number of molecules in our known universe. So having that fine-tuning argument is a great argument and defense for Christianity and for the idea of intelligent design. And I said, great, that's a fantastic argument, love it. At what point, though, do we start to say, hey, listen, atheists, we have the fine-tuning argument, we have presuppositional apologetics, we've got evidentiary apologetics, we've got other argumentation that goes for the creation of the natural world. At what point do we bring all these together for a compendium of books? And that's where he said, you're making my eyes close out. So, yeah, I feel somewhat smarter, but also stupid.
Yeah. Well, interesting. All right.
Can I share something economics that if I was prepared?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let me share. Oh wait, how do I share? I lost. Okay, so I saw them long time ago, but never seen them physically. So I had the opportunity to see gold bills, which means in a type of polymer that Norman was very excited about, or what he knew about it.
He was.
Some type of polymer. They create a bill, a like a regular dollar bill, I guess if you want to see it.
But which wasn't the first time Norman nerded out as a chemical engineer.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely not. Not even that week. But it's,
So, and the cool thing about this type of bills is that you can actually put actual gold in small quantities, and you're talking about these bills that you guys can see right now. Mm-hmm. They should be like about $2, $7, and so on and so forth. So that means that they're spendable. You can easily go out and buy something as long as someone accepts it as means of payments. And so the goal in the future is to take them to South Venezuela, where they are using regular gold as means of payments. And so let's see how they respond to something like this, because it's actual gold, but to get it
Transportable.
transportable
Yeah.
in a polymer, a sophisticated polymer material.
The
So
word is has money.
it has, we're gonna go see what's the level of moneyness that this type of mediums of exchange assets that are developed by the market, not by the state. Let's see what level of moneyness can we actually get it running. So it's pretty cool. It was a pretty cool experience and a pretty cool project for the future. So I really did like this.
Yeah, they were an interesting exhibitor for sure. And
Yeah.
there were a lot of, monetary exhibitors there.
They had a very clever marketing scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, they gave you the little fiat dollar bill in your name tag, and you go to their booth to redeem it for this actual gold back. So they gave, if you went and redeemed it, you got the one gold back. And then that opened the door to the conversation about how, well, dollars used to be these certificates that you got to exchange for gold or silver. And then Nixon came.
And said,
well, I guess it was before Nixon. It was before Nixon, but at any rate.
He closed the gold window.
Yeah, he closed the gold window.
He closed our hope.
Yeah. It was the last vestiges.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there were a lot of just kind of standard libertarian exhibitors as well, the guys you kind of expect to see at stuff like this. We saw, our friends from FEE. We saw our friends from Reason. Independent Institute, likewise, was there. Mises Institute was there. And, there was a lot of Libertarian Party folks and some other new organizations. I mean, this was not the first time to say, for instance, that the Tuttle Twins were there, I'm sure, at FreedomFest. But they had a very nice table that was, accompanied by the Libertas Institute that kind of helps their operation get off the ground. Scott Horton's group was there. That's called the Libertarian Institute. They're good folks, of course. Scott's kind of a we have a mutual love for each other. Scott was on a number of sessions and panels. He actually did one cool panel discussion with Kennedy and another gentleman who's an author named Stephen Kent. Which was fun for me because I can't remember the exact title of the session, but the book was something akin to, Why the Force Will Save Us All. It's just a really broad-based title, and I'm totally butchering it. Sorry, Stephen. But it was a book that kind of draws out the political and moral and ethical implications of of the Star Wars universe, and both classic and newer material. Of course, and being a major Star Wars fan myself, I enjoyed that discussion. Scott was on that panel along with Kennedy. They had a pretty good time talking. I thought it was a fun panel discussion to check out. Did you guys see any other panel discussions you thought were particularly interesting?
Well, I just let him know that Qui-Gon Jinn was the only true libertarian in Star
Wars. You're kind of right there.
That's hilarious.
That's funny. Oh yeah. Well, what other panel discussions did you guys get to check out?
Private cities. It's down my alley of interest.
Yeah.
I went to ask them how do they work with immigration in a private society.
And what was the answer there?
Oddly enough, they kind of got some ideas from me.
Oh well, okay.
Yeah, and they were like, "Yeah, that's true." The general idea that I've been working for a long time is that, in free market situations, commercial areas are extremely open, even under very difficult and violent environments. They're still very open to all types of immigration. But residential areas are very, very close in a free market environment. I think Norman, you mentioned it once. It was like, oh, you can just see the gated communities. Like,
yeah, it's something that happens even now. Yeah,
even now,
it would just be more common.
And so that's why the big discussion there's between the open and the closed border positions. Usually, the closed border positions, most likely conservative, culturally speaking, if you wish.
Yeah.
They'll in their mind they have their private life. And their private areas, and they think, wait a minute, why are you going to open the whole country? Don't you see that in your personal life you keep things, your personal property real close? And then a lot of people say, well, the whole country is not your personal property. And on the other side, the open borders people usually see commercial areas and say, are you kidding me? Like, the free market is very, very open. And so I think both sides have to keep in mind that we are paying attention to only one side of the, we're overly concerned, because that's just what human beings do. We're overly concerned with certain items, and I think both have some type of validity. And the problem is that with the state, it's very difficult to tease out because the property rights are not clear, and that's why these discussions happen. And so, as far as I understood, there were their plan is of their we're doing right now. It literally is when you get into the private city, the very entry, it's commercial areas and it's super open, almost no checkoffs or nothing like that. But in the outskirts of the commercial area, you have the residential areas where they're really strict about who goes in and who goes out. As if it was like gated communities, but the commercial areas are very open. And then from there, we can, I think, if we use that framework from here on, the discussion of open and closed borders can actually be more profitable across both sides of the aisle. Hopefully that that will help out in the future.
Yeah, to actually have a better theoretical foundation for what it means to have an open border and a closed border is pretty lost upon most people, it seems
Exactly.
like. All right. So, any other sessions that you guys attended that were particularly interesting?
I attended.
Go
ahead.
Jay.
No. I attended the Wilder Summit, which is named for Rose Wilder Lane. It's the first year that they're doing it. So I expect that they'll do it again next year. It's, it's essentially centered around women's issues, women's rights issues. I think there were 4 panels. I saw 3 of them. I think the one that really stood out to me was the one presented by the Ladies of Liberty Alliance, which had 4 panelists, all international women, 3 of which were from Latin America. They had one from Brazil, Uruguay, Venezuela, and then they had a woman from India. And I think that panel was really interesting and illuminating because they talked about, issues particularly related to reproductive rights, obviously, that are unique in socialist countries, and the problems that they face under socialism. So that was really illuminating, I thought, and gave a twist on a lot of the arguments that I would say American women take for granted. So at any rate, yeah, that was probably the most interesting one.
Cool. Matt?
I actually got a chance through my work to be on a panel in regards to healthcare, and the subversion of the healthcare system is very fascinating. I, being a part of a company that does healthcare payments very differently than traditional insurance, and so that was I was glad to be on it, very honored to be on it. But there was also 2 other gentlemen who were definitely more in the actual health and body fields themselves, where they were coming up with technologies that would change gene and hormone therapy. It was very, very fascinating. One gentleman had come up with a way to use different stem cells that you already have in your body to lose weight and increase bone density. So being somebody who could lose pretty much the size of Aaron, I was curious about it, and might want to look into that, as well as things like medical tourism, and all the ways that you can subvert the current medical systems to actually make it more affordable and accessible to the individual. So it was fantastic. It was just great ways to see and hear people coming up with free market responses to problems that people are having today and have real solutions to them.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty neat. I think I met one of those gentlemen who was doing the gene therapy work as well, and that he and I had some good discussions from one scientist to another. that was good. Well, and then of course there was plenty to do in the evenings in Las Vegas. I don't know if you guys got to do. Well, we were kind of
really. What were you doing, Norman?
Well, one of the things I got to do during the evenings was one of the highlights for me actually of the whole week was to do the special meet and greet with John Cleese of the Monty Python troupe. Of course, is kind of a hero of mine in the comedy and creative space. that was super cool, and just so I got to get a photo with him, and that was pretty neat. It was pretty neat. I know I will be the envy of many for years to come. So
Norman was glowing when he came back to the room,
yeah.
and so like I couldn't even sleep because he was like glowing, and I was trying to sleep and I couldn't do it. 'cause, like, just absolute happiness and joy all throughout, like 24 hours straight forward.
Well,
after
I was almost able to get him to engage me in an argument. I
Oh.
offered him a $5, and it didn't. He was like, no. I said, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Don't start." Okay, that's okay. But
That's funny.
It was good. It was good. Then of course, once we did have some good times together as a team, and we had a lot of sushi. There was a lot of sushi
Yes.
eaten. I think we might have bought out.
AFP and LCI
Yeah.
conspired to
Yeah,
make
so
me not a sushi virgin anymore.
Oh. Okay.
Those were Aaron's
Raw
words.
fish was had.
No,
Yes.
that wasn't me. I'm
We
sorry.
bought
no,
out the
That was
entire.
you.
We
No, I
pretty
said you
much
were like
bought
a
out the
rookie or
entire
whatever, but I
raw
didn't
fish
say anything
market of
about
Vegas. Yeah. It was fun. It was a good time had by all. Well, I hope that if you're listening here today, that you will consider going to Freedom Fest in the future. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time, and hopefully we'll get to do it again next year. And hopefully all of us will meet back together again and bring down the house. It'll be in Memphis next year, though, not Las Vegas. So it'll be a little more barbecue, a little less sushi, I imagine. A little more country music, a little less risque dancers, probably a little more, forest and trees, a little less desert, and that'll be welcome indeed, I think. I've had enough of Vegas for now. I don't think I need to go back for a time. All right. Well, any closing thoughts before we conclude this, fellas? Hearing none.
I
Oh,
don't know. There's a boat about to go by that's very, very loud. So hopefully you can hear me. But I did want to say that this was time actually for the LCI crew to all be in one place at one time, and it was
Yep.
really very special. I'm glad to be with you all. I feel that the bonds of LCI can grow from here. We're no longer disparate, separate voices scattered all across the country. We do have a united front and a desire to see this organization thrive in these difficult times.
yeah. Well, thank you for that, Matt. I hope everybody heard him and his growing, assimilation by the robot overlords. But no, that worked out well. But no, he's right though that it was a great opportunity to bring the team together, a special perk for us all, if you will, because it's not often, especially in the past couple of years, that that's even been possible. But we made it happen. It was great, and I hope that with a lot of our supporters out there that'll enable the crew to be more present at events like Freedom Fest, where there's a lot of libertarians who are also Christians who are going to be there and don't know that much about us. But also, this is just the beginning of something perhaps more, and that is that we are very interested in trying to not only up our presence and visibility in the libertarian movement, but also amongst our fellow Christians out there who don't even know what a libertarian is and are still confused about the left and the right and so on. So
we want to let them know that they're libertarians, although they don't know it yet.
They don't know it yet. Yeah, that is sort of the reality, right? And that so many people are just waiting for a better way to think and to be provided with that level of sophisticated thought is what we're here to do. And so I hope that if you are not already supporting us at this time at LCI, that you'll consider making us part of that, part of your support structure and where you regularly give and whatnot. We're giving a lot to make sure that this happens, and so we do appreciate everybody who goes out and supports us even now. So with that, we're very happy to have done that and to be the vanguard for this movement, I hope. And so let's keep it all going, fellas. And with that, I think we're going to call it good for tonight. This has been the Libertarian Christian. Not the Libertarian Christian Podcast. That's our other show. This has been Good News, Bad News, the Libertarian Christian Roundtable, and we've got all of our friends here tonight bidding you a fair farewell.